So good evening, everyone. Welcome to Njenje Media TV. Welcome to this new series titled The State of the Igbo Nation. And today we will be concentrating on the Anambra State transition. We are asking this question, Anambra State transitioning to a new era. If you all recall, next week we will be having a new governor in the dear state of Anambra. Having said that, to have this conversation today, to to X-ray what is happening in the great Igbo nation, many of you know things many would argue are no longer the same. I have the rare privilege of having a man many of you know very well. He was part of the Anambra State Transition Committee in the person of Dr. Law O. Mefor. Mefor is a forensic and social psychologist. He is a teacher, a journalist, a public policy analyst, a media and communication strategist. He is an author, a social critic, inspirational speaker, and a public intellectual. Anu Yagu, you're welcome to Njenje Media TV. Anu Yagu, you're welcome to Njenje Media TV. Can you hear me?
No, not here. Your own audio.
Anu Yagu, can you hear me?
From there,
I'm trying to.
I think we do have some challenges here. I think we have an audio challenge there with Dr. Law Mefor. But as usual, he will come back. He will come back and we will have this conversation. Many of us have argued that Anambra State is entering into a new era. Many have said that Anambra State, what many are seeing now is that Anambra is likely to leapfrog. But some are saying that is so theoretic, that has no basis in reality. Others argue, however, that, reality is a product of dreams. But it appears that what is about to happen in Anambra State will be determined by those or by individuals and his team of those who we have elected to govern the state. Some are saying, in this current state of the Igbo nation, it is needed that a transformational leader comes in, galvanizes every section of the Igbo nation, all the states in the southeast and beyond, and other states where the Igbo might find themselves, to project oneness and to project that aura of togetherness. In the words of, in the era of Dr. M.I. Okpara, where we had a principle of Onyaga na Nwanne. Question is, will Ndi Igbo come back to that era of Onyaga na Nwanne by action and by the type of leaders they will bring to the table? Again, it appears my guest has joined me back. I am going to be bringing back now Dr. Law Mefor. Dr. Law Mefor, you are welcome to Njenje Media TV once more. Can you hear me? Dr. Mefor, can you hear me? Okay. So, if you can you hear me, right?
What happened is technical hitch, and I hope it stabilizes. I can hear you now.
Yes, okay. So, Dr. Mefor, let us, start by way of introduction. Obviously, there is, you had a technical problem when I did introduce you, but would I, offer you the privilege to hear from you, as in some parts of the world will say, let us hear from the horse's mouth. Are you there? I think the communication is somewhat frozen again. Dr. Mefor, are you still there?
You would like to hear from me, and that's where you left off. So, can you rephrase the question so that
Okay.
I'll know precisely what to address.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor. Before now, your connection disappeared. Now you're back again. My question to you, by way of introduction, I said that I did introduce you when your connection was having some issue. Would you then mind introducing yourself to the audience before we go on with our conversation this evening?
Okay.
You're back again. Go ahead. Did you hear me?
Yeah, going on. Okay, but I think it's getting better now.
Yes.
All right. So,
go ahead.
Before now, you said get your exact question. It's very important.
Okay, it's fine. It was only mere introduction. Let's move on, Dr. Mefor here. You were part of those that looked at the part of the transition committee of Anambra State. What is your general impression of that committee?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. What is your general impression of that committee?
What do you want to know about the committee?
No, what is your general impression about that committee? Vis-a-vis the work you people were able to produce for the Anambra and the Great Igbo Nation.
Soludo just wanted a team of experts to think through with him on how to get him ready to govern from day one. That is the summary of the idea, and I think he has worked out beautifully well. But I'm not competent to comment further on the works of the committee. I can't go beyond this. I'll leave that to our chairperson, Lady Dr. Obi Ezekwesili.
Okay, so now there is this euphoria and the notion by so many people, regarding a new dawn or a new era in coming to Anambra. Do you agree that there is a new dawn coming to Anambra?
Of course, there is a new dawn. It's without any doubt. Because if you look at it, there is a transition from one government to another. That's a new dawn, and what that portends is quite a different thing altogether. If what you mean by a new dawn is a fresh beginning, a brand new start for Anambra, I think one can also view it from that perspective. We have so much expectation, and I just hope and pray it is not too much of an expectation that the new government of Professor Chukwuma Soludo is a silver bullet that will address all the developmental and leadership deficits that have been suffered by the state. I hope that we haven't really placed too much on him. But the Soludo I know will certainly make a difference. Anambra is ripe for what you may call being upgraded to the next level. And I don't see who is better placed to move Anambra to the next level, better than Professor Soludo. He is quite prepared for this. And he has actually hungered for it. He has worked for it. He has envisioned a new Anambra state. And I think he's starting out very well. First, by assembling, a team of experts to work on governance and processes and systems that will really enable him launch Anambra into a new beginning and into the new level. I sincerely believe that it's not a misplaced expectation, but I know there are constraints that he is bound to really face. You have politics there, you have insecurity there, you have people who have fed fat off the old order. Change is a very difficult thing to engender in any human space. Whether we like it or not, many people would want the rot to continue. Many people would want the underdevelopment to continue because they benefit from it. So if you want to bring about a radical change in a system like that, you really have to be prepared for a lot of work and for a lot of battles, if I may put it that way. So, but I believe that Soludo is up to it. He's strong enough. Yes, experienced enough.
Okay, that is gratifying. Now, there are school of thought, Dr. Mefor. There are people who believe that Soludo would act as the prime minister of the Great Igbo nation. And some argue that, well, that is asking too much of him. He's not elected to be in that shoe. But if we take a deeper dive into what the general public is expecting, excluding the committee which you were part of, do you think that anyone from any part of the Igbo nation looking at Soludo as an incoming prime minister will be too mistaken based on his experience and the other expectations?
Yeah. Let me rephrase what I believe to be your question. You talked about Soludo being looked up to as a kind of
A prime
prime
minister.
minister for
Yes.
for the entire
Exactly.
southeast, perhaps
Yeah.
Igbo space. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that is what Soludo is looking at the moment. Soludo wants to get Anambra State right, and I believe that if he succeeds in doing that, is the first step. It will certainly rub off the rest of the southeast, if not the rest of the country. If that is what you mean by imagine the prime minister of the southeast or Igbo land, well, it's your own assumption. I think you may be taking your bearing from the fact that when he set up his transition committee, he didn't limit it to Anambra State. He went the whole hog to bring in experts, eggheads, professionals, from all over Igbo land. He went to as far as Delta, Ebonyi, Enugu, Abia, Imo. He brought everybody together. And yeah, he is doing that first and foremost to be sure that he really sourced information and expertise from wherever it could be found. So he didn't want to limit himself to Anambra State alone. That does not mean that if he really wanted to leave the garnering of expertise to Anambra State alone, that he couldn't have been able to get enough from Anambra. I think he went beyond Anambra for a good measure to send the signal that indeed, Igbo Bofu, as people would say, we are one people. So if it is good for Anambra, it should be good for the rest of Igbo land. And I think that is just what that gesture, was supposed to achieve, and indeed he achieved it. Those he brought in from outside Anambra State into the fray, I can assure you they were really very dynamic, very instrumental to the work of the transition. But I don't want to be drawn into discussing the work of the transition because, like I said, I am not competent enough to discuss the work of the transition. We have to give the chairperson, Dr. B. Ezekweso, and of course, the governor-elect, the incoming governor himself, to declassify that document and they make it a public one. Then by then, some of us who worked on it will be free enough to dissect it further and take questions therefrom. But I think that on the whole, the gesture is genuine and it's not necessarily meant to position himself as the new Mike Obara. Such positions are not quite acquired by aspiration. No, it can only be incidental. But like I said, I don't think that should be his immediate focus, and it is not. He wants to get Anambra State right. I remember when we embarked on the journey for the campaign for Nigerian president of Southeast or Igbo extraction. I had a discussion on it, with Soludo, and a lengthy one at that. And he told me that, look, you see, I thank you people for thinking me qualified to, lead Nigeria. But my focus is Anambra. Let us get Anambra right. Get Anambra repositioned as the gateway to the east. Anambra is an economic hub. That is the target of the incoming governor. What he is looking at is basic, really. He wants a total transformation, the kind of transformation that will that will take redirect the state towards what I have earlier identified as the next level. The next level is to key Anambra State into the fourth industrial revolution. And the fourth industrial revolution is actually, a disruptive one that is coming from, technology. It's coming from ICT. It's coming from digitalization. It's coming from digitization. So you can see that everything about Anambra is bound to change in the next 2 years. Soludo is determined, to move Anambra to what he has called the smart mega city. He's looking at Anambra as one, mega city. And of course, by numerical identification, a mega city starts from a population of 10 million. And the Anambra is already verging into 10 million. So projecting from now into what Anambra should be in the next couple of years, it has to be Anambra as a mega city. That is what he wants to prepare the state for. And the economic blueprint that he has, put together via his manifesto, now perfected, via the transition committee report. And again, there is also another report which himself midwifed because he chaired it, Anambra Vision 2070. All these documents, will constitute the blueprint that will guide, his governance in moving Anambra from, this analog state to a full digital state. Both the agricultural, trade, commerce, job creation, everything will have to be done via technology, via the internet, and so on and so forth. Anything about a smart city is talking about a city that is run using the internet, ICT, and technology as enablers, and that is precisely what his vision is about. I do think that those who understand Soludo and what he has a vision for the state share with him, and it may appear too ambitious, but it is realizable. It is realizable. Knowing the man, don't forget, if you recall, when he talked about the recapitalization of Nigerian banks from the paltry sum of 5 billion to 25 billion. Only one man believed him in the whole country. Only Obasanjo believed Soludo, and he gave him the backing as the president. And it was more like a stunt. So what he is talking about now is already happening in other places. If you check what is going on in India, check that indeed what is happening in Anambra and what himself is planning is doable. If you check what is going on in China, if you check what is going on in EAU, Dubai particularly, 20, 30 years ago, it's, nobody believed that these things were possible, but they are all possible here now. And Anambra, if you look at the setting very well, it has the population, it has the what you may call the enabling environment. It has a fairly educated youthful population. It has, a skilled population as well, especially in the diaspora. All that is required now is leadership and funding. And that is what Soludo has promised to provide. And I believe it is doable. He is already on top of it. And come March 17th, he will take over the leadership of the state, and he will start transforming all these issues to real praxis, things people can hang some deliverables on, and they begin to check off as he makes a progress. But like I said, he will certainly have to deal with the issue of insecurity. Insecurity in Anambra State is very, very alarming. It's becoming very embarrassing.
We will get to
this is an overview.
We will get to the issue of insecurity. But if you can hear me, recently there is the Senate passed both the lower house and the upper house passed the Constitution amendment. And therein, there are some sections. You and I, in many times, have argued about the.
Can you take that question again, please?
Okay. So I said.
Can you take that question again?
Okay. My question here is: recently, we have read and we have seen the National Assembly, both the lower house and the upper house, have done the constitutional amendment where there are some items in the exclusive list that they've made the proposition to be moved into the concurrent list. And if that eventually gets signed into law, in line with what you're saying, the ideas being rolled out in Anambra State, for instance, in terms of power generation and distribution, and there are some other, items. You and I, so many times over the years, have actually argued about the unbundling, what we tagged the unbundling of the exclusive list. Now, do you think, or rather, how far do you think, with the current unbundling of this constitution and the exclusive list, how far do you think would help Anambra State in getting to these visions that you outlined before now? Anyway, are you still there? Sorry about the network. I think the network, if you can hear me, you are frozen. The network is pretty not helping matters this evening. You know what we might do? We might bring you over on audio, if that will help. Let me quickly do that, and let's bring you back on audio. So everyone, just wait a moment. Let's bring him back via audio. In the meantime, while we are trying to get him back on audio, because obviously the visual is not working, let us quickly review the story of Emma Akbara, what every person in Igbo land is expecting the Southeast to eventually become.
Ikenga. Oh, Ikenga. Shall yet see your sunrise, Ikenga. Shall yet see your sunrise.
My first encounter with him was in December 1940.
He was a gifted man, all round. There is no area you talk about or you walk about that he will not show you how it is done.
He was able to use cocoa, palm oil, and a few other products locally to run one of the fastest growing economies in the world.
That he was named MI Power.
Later, Dr. Michael Akbara.
Akbara took over at a time when there were no institutions.
Even though the eastern region was the poorest of the regions at the time.
He was a pioneer. He had to lay the foundation for this. whatever he sets his heart on, which is good, he will see to it that it is done properly.
From January till December, there was always a new project, that was commissioned.
He's a very pragmatic person, but always rooted in the people.
Like that, as if he was so, he was in such a hurry that he wanted to do so much.
Unfortunately, the Civil War dislocated so many things.
I personally felt extremely sad.
Because the ideas and the principle which they stood for, their successors in many cases didn't follow. And that's where we are seeing to today.
Onyagala 1 year. That's leave nobody behind. Philosophy of the Igbo community. That's what it built into.
The politics of then was politics of principles.
Truth was that he was an honest man. He was really a nationalist. He didn't build a house, even in his hometown. He was a dedicated Nigerian of Igbo extraction.
Down forever. We shall rise again.
So thank you. We are back again. Now I'm going to be having Dr. Mefor here, but now on audio because the visual, we are having some issues with the visual. So Dr. Mefor, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So now the question that I asked you before now is, you and I many times have discussed the issue of unbundling the exclusive list in order to allow some states breathing space. And recently we have seen the National Assembly, both the upper and the lower house, looking and obviously have touched some of these items that we have in private spoken about before now. Looking at the things you outlined, the projections and the visions you think the incoming governor of Anambra State will have for Anambra, if you marry that with what is happening within the Senate, do you think Anambra State is in a lucky state to, one, have a visionary incoming governor, two, at the same time that the Constitution amendment is happening at that same point?
Oh, yeah. I would say that the incoming government of Professor Soludo will be better positioned with some of the key recommendations for amendment. And I will identify a number of them here. For inclusion from exclusive list to concurrent list, items like ports, airports. Airports can now be regulated by the states as well as the federal government. In other words, the Anambra International Cargo Airport can actually be put to serious use by the Soludo government as an enabler. Very fundamental, because if you are able to utilize that airport as an international cargo airport effectively, it means that the importers and exporters from Anambra State, Onitsha, and so on and so forth, they will not have to be compelled to continue to rely on the Lagos airport. This is very fundamental. And again, the issue of exporting from Anambra State becomes also a reality, because you can now think in terms of the export processing zone, being located in Anambra State, without having a direct control over the international cargo airport. You will not be able to do much in that regard. So it's a blessing. There's no doubt about that. And of course, I'm also aware that items like railway
and power generation and distribution,
particularly, is also going to concurrent list from the exclusive. People keep saying that Nigeria has privatized the power sector. That is not true. At best, we have partially privatized. The power sector is divided into three parts. You have the generation, you have the transmission, and then you have the distribution. Yes. When you generate, you have to transmit before you distribute. Federal government is still holding on to 100% of transmission, 100%. And they are also holding on to either 40 or 60% of generation. So you cannot say that we have actually privatized.
That's true.
So if what we have done now, and all these GENCOs, go and see a place like EEDC, Enugu Electricity Generation, the generation or distribution company. They just fleece the people. Do you know that power is generated and some of them will refuse to transmit?
Yes.
Because they make more money through fixed charges and so on and so forth. This will give you an idea of the level of evil machinations going on in the politics, stifling the economic growth and development. So certainly, if it gets signed into law, ultimately, it means that Soludo can generating and giving Anambra State electricity without having to have recourse to the center, because the implication of moving power to always been what we have agitated for, to give the states the leverage to exit the so-called national grid. Because as it is now, you can generate electricity, but once it is more than 5 megahertz, you pay. And that is what the law says. And for you, the only way you can do to generate is to generate a multiple of you now build a small power generation companies that can't exceed the capacity of carry capacity of 5 megahertz. That is going to be cumbersome. Nobody has tried. So power, which is a major enabler, in any economic development, will really, become what it is, an enabler for the incoming administration. So I believe that the amendment of that section of the Constitution as proposed by the ongoing process and exercise will certainly bolster the incoming administration of Soludo. I believe so. And there are other aspects. However, there is one essential amendment that is lacking in all this, which I believe is taking the shine off everything. And I believe it has to do with the issue of security. I believe that a federal system of government must operate state police system. It must operate community police system, not community policing. There's a difference between community policing and community police. A community police is a police owned by the people, and answerable to the law. But community policing is the kind of community efforts in policing process that helps the central police system. And that is what they want. It will not help anybody. I have I've done a bit of research, and I have found out that you have 26 countries of the world that operate federal system of government. Only Nigeria operates centralized police system. You have about 400,000 officers and men policing well over 200 million of us. You and I know it is not possible. And this has, left so much of Nigeria as an ungoverned space. Because for you to talk about government and governance is about law and order. If the police is not available or is incapable of enforcing law and order, there is no peace, there is no society. This is what has happened to us. And I believe that what has happened is essentially the fact that the people of Nigeria have not been given the legal instruments to be able to organize their own security. Security is local. Let me give you an example. If you have a centralized police system that is incapable of even stopping the setting up of camps, physical camps, training by non-state actors, bearing arms and attacking innocent citizens, killing, maiming, and then the central police is helpless, incapable of doing anything in that regard, then such a system is not helping anybody. And you and I know that in the absence of peace, there is no development. And this is going to really affect the great dreams of Professor Soludo.
On that,
because he will have to confront security first.
On that point, now I want to use that for us to come to this part of this conversation, which centers on the security of the Southeast. Okay, so now the security of the Southeast, I am aware that people now visit, for instance, Anambra. People no longer go to their villages. People will now stay in Oka, the capital city. I am aware that the same applies to Imo State, where people now coming, they only stop at Owerri, and they no longer go to their villages. This evening, you and I received a picture of a beheaded PG of Umuzike community, I believe, autonomous community, and his, head hung somewhere. And this is someone who had lived all his life in America and is back home and he's been elected PG and he wants to help his own motherland. Now, let us bring this home. Let us come back to Anambra State. Is there any way all these lofty ideas can ever work without first tackling security? And in tackling the security, now you've outlined that part of the problem is the inability of states to control their security by means of state security. But some would argue you have the local vigilantes. But it also appears that the local vigilantes in the hands of these non-state actors are so vulnerable that they now do whatever they do to them at will. What is the magic in getting sanity back to the great Igbo nation, Dr. Mefor?
Yes, I want to say that what has happened as far as insecurity in Nigeria, not just in Anambra or Igbo land alone, has to do with the fact that the states do not have the powers to organize their own security. That is very clear. And the governors donate money, equipment, vehicles, and all that, but that is where it ends. The highest they have been able to really deal with is to, set up vigilantes. They set up vigilantes, and the vigilantes they have set up are not, these vigilantes they have set up are not actually empowered enough to confront the insecurity besetting the states. I'll give you an example. You see, for you to have an effective policing system, you will have to get competent people, train them thoroughly. You train them thoroughly, and then you arm them. You arm them effectively, and then give them political cover to be able to do their work. All these factors are lacking when it comes to vigilante operation. They are not trained. They are not well paid. They operate almost outside the law, and they have no political cover to really enable them be an extension of even the Nigerian police force. Wherever anything happens with them in the state, you discover that they are on their own, and the towns will be running from pillar to post, raising money, bribing their way in order to close the one or two cases that, for which they are not being held responsible, even by the same police force they are trying to help. What I mean is this, it's very simple. It's either you are a police force or you are not. A vigilante group is not a police force. You can't even give them arms. If you check the Police Act and the other extant laws that govern the police operations in Nigeria, there's one thing you will discover. Individuals in Nigeria can bear arms, but it has to do with the category of arms. The Nigerian police force cannot, license assault rifles to individuals. This is a matter of law now. In other words, if you set up a vigilante operation or organization, you cannot arm them properly beyond maybe pump action. How can you confront, bandits, terrorists, insurgents, unknown gunmen that are armed with AK-47, AK-49, RPGs, rocket launchers, with pump action and gun? That is not possible. And that is why they cannot stand before them. They cannot confront them. In fact, once they hear that these people are on the way, they all disappear. They melt out of their way completely because they are not in a position to really do anything. The same thing applies to the political story told by the so-called Ebubagu and Amoteko. You cannot set up those things like legal structures. They need to face the reality. The realities are amending the, I think, Section 175 of the 1999 Constitution. I'm not too sure of the section now, but it's the section that says that Nigeria should, shall have only one police force. You need to move that to concurrent list so that the states will be able to organize their own security. Until you do this, nothing. There is nothing anybody can do about insecurity in Nigeria. That's the truth. You see, Nigerian police force cannot be effective the way it is constituted. Some of us have basic knowledge of what it means to really set up an effective, police system. It's not rocket science. I've already mentioned some of the factors that must, come to play, and some of these factors you cannot wish them away. You need to get the proper arms, and those proper arms are outlawed in Nigeria. In other words, you need to amend the section of the Constitution that says that vigilante operations cannot bear assault rifles. That is the issue here. Let me give you an example. Why is AK-47 considered the most effective assault rifle in the world as of today? It is because it can kill a target within 3 miles. What is the capacity of a pump action? If you don't have your target, point blank, you can't be sure of knocking it out. So you can see that whoever is armed with pump action that is facing somebody who can take you out 3 miles away, you stand no chance at all. That is why the vigilante operations are mere palliatives to give the impression that something is being done, but they don't really constitute security and police operations. They are not in a position to do anything. Let us face reality. I have made a claim, and I stand to be corrected, that you have 26 countries of the world that practice centralism, and they all practice decentralized policing system. Why is Nigeria the only one claiming to be a federal system of government that is still practicing centralized policing system? You see, it is crazy repeating the same thing and expecting to see a different result. It doesn't happen. You either secure yourself or you don't. People will claim that defense is an international law. Yes, it is. So why don't you allow the states to defend themselves? Now, the non-state actors have armed themselves illegally, right? They have access to, AK-47, AK-49, RPG, rocket launchers. In fact, they are. We got the militias because they can pass for a military force, even though they are ragtag, but they can confront the whole army. And they have been doing that in Nigeria. And yet the same law is asking the citizens not to arm themselves. Can't you see this hypocrisy? Murderous hypocrisy. The citizens can end their assailants. And the Nigerian police force is not in a position to really defend them. Can't you see? The inadequacy of the Nigerian police force is so obvious for no fault of theirs. They are not enough in their numbers. You have about 400,000 of them. And out of the 400,000 police officers and men you have in Nigeria, well over 150,000 of them are following politicians and their wives around as bodyguards. So the actual number of policemen, released to deal with the statutory, functions of the Nigerian police, of the police, as a matter of fact, will be just in the neighborhood of the 200 to 300,000. How can that function in a population of over 200 million people? Why are we living this life? Why are we continuing this way?
Anyway.
Look at the number of people that die every day in Nigeria because the people are not in a position to defend themselves. Now, I also must say, let me quickly add this so that you can come in. Let me quickly add this. Yes, I agree with the argument that the police, state police will be subject to abuse by state governors. Yes, I agree. But is the federal police not being abused now?
Sure.
Is the federal police not being abused as we speak? In fact, I believe that you weigh your pros and cons. When you weigh your pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages, if advantages outweigh disadvantages, you go with the advantages and then find ways to ameliorate the disadvantages. I believe that if you have, a proper state assembly in place, a state assembly that enjoys what you call financial autonomy, and you have an internal party democracy, so that people will elect whoever they want to be their representative at state level, and you have state police service commission, that its membership is permanent. The chairman, his position is guaranteed, so no governor can order him around. He will do his job because no governor can remove him without the true thought of the members of the state assembly saying so. When you have some legal frameworks in place, it becomes possible for the citizens of the state to checkmate the excesses of the governor. What is happening at the moment, why the governors appear uncontrollable, is very simple. The governors cannot be controlled for the simple reason that the quintessence of the principles of separation of powers that exist in the presidential democracy are lacking in states in Nigeria. The state assembly doesn't exist. The state judiciary doesn't exist. It's just the governor. So the governor is a czar. He is a dictator made so by the constitution. So if you want to deal with the fear, make sure that you grant autonomy to state assemblies, grant autonomy to state judiciary, you set up the state police service commission and make the membership permanent. So that if you say you have a tenure of 5 years for the chairman and the members of the state police service commission, that tenure is guaranteed. And no governor can remove it without the true touch of the state assembly. If you commit infractions and stuff like that, you can be removed. But you don't allow it in a manner that the commission can no longer, be able to do his work because of the overbearing nature of the governors. By nature, the executive, whether it's holding an executive office by nature, is tyrannical. So it is the institution, it is the people, it is the laws that will check the excesses of the governors, just as it should check the excesses of the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it is not rocket science. It can be done. If you look at it from this perspective, you will see that we just have to insist on state police and even go the whole hog and also bring in, the community police. When you bring in community police, the vigilantes that operate at town levels will have the power to be able to protect their own towns and get protected under the law and enjoy enough political color.
Now,
this is just my simple thoughts about
yes.
it.
Now, thank you very much for putting those thoughts, pretty well, and that is very well done. Now, let me quickly come. You see, while you were talking, you said something that you see no end in sight without having state police, and that many would consider that is very, very discouraging. Then, so if we look at where we are today in the Southeast, and one just opposes what you've just said into that, and one will begin to think, okay, we have non-state actors running amok in the Southeast. Does that then mean without having state police, we will not make any headway that would then hinder the euphoria that many people, and especially in the Anambra, have had, with, regarding the incoming government of Anambra?
Well, you see, in the interim, something can be done. Somebody like Soludo should be able to do something, using the basic carrot and stick. I don't approve the method employed in Imo State by Rufus Odima. He used only the stick. I don't see application of carrot in the whole thing. And people are allowed to do as they like by the system. The Nigeria police system is such that the citizens are now on their own. That is the simple summary of where we are as of today. What has happened in Imo is a lesson for Professor Soludo. You should know that using the stick alone will not work. It will replicate what has happened in Imo. However, there has to be, stick will be involved, no doubt. Because if you use only carrot, you will also not be able to get anything done. So I believe that what he should do in the interim is to, really put his idea on the ground and find out precisely what the hell is happening. I have cause to believe that what is happening in Anambra State, is mostly not perpetrated by Anambra State indigenous. It may sound strange, but I mean it. I mean it. By that I mean that well up to 80% of those who are responsible for insecurity in Anambra State may not be people from Anambra State. We need to understand who they are and why they are doing what they are doing and what they really want. What do they really want? I don't think that their aim is just insecurity, to perpetrate insecurity. I really don't want to believe that. Because the stakes are too high and the dangers are also quite serious. So they've gotten to the point of putting their own lives on the line, because whoever kills that way, is certainly sure that his own life can go as well, in combat, if not in anything else. So I believe that the first thing to do is to really put a finger on the actual motive driving insecurity in Igbo land. I've heard a number of theories. So many people believe, this it has to do with the Biafra agitation. Well, I don't think that use of arms, to drive and achieve the aim of restoring Biafra is inevitable. I don't think that arms is inevitable. I listened to Sunday Igbo, who just got released from Benin prison. He made a statement via his lawyer, look, we need to use a peaceful, non-violent process to achieve self-determination of the Oduduwa Republic. That is the Yoruba nation. Yes, I agree with him. And I think the same thing can be pushed, that kind of narration can be pushed as a way of reorientating our people who are insisting on Biafra. We are all Biafrans, but we don't need to kill ourselves, before we get Biafra. We don't need it. And we can learn from people who have traveled that route. Let me give the example of Amazonia. The Southern Cameroon trying to pull out of the Cameroon Republic. They have been into armed struggle for the better part of the last 2 decades. What is the result? If it's something the struggle would achieve, I believe that they would have achieved that by now, but they haven't. It means that it's a long journey, it's a marathon. It's not something that once you go to war, you will get. We have gone to war before. We went to war, or rather, a
war was forced on us.
Yes, I was saying that I don't want to use the expression that we went to war, because the war was brought upon us because we wanted to be free of Nigeria. So, but let me say we engaged in a war just to free ourselves from Nigeria. It didn't work. After investing over 2 million of us, 2 million lives in the process, we didn't get it. But what I'm trying to say is that, if the use of arms is a guarantee to freedom, we would have gotten it even in 1967. You have much more that will go into the process. The Catalonia of Spain, they had even formed their own government, carried out their own referendum and everything. Up to today, they are still not independent. So much goes into achieving a sovereignty within a sovereignty. It has to do with so much diplomacy, so much politics, legalism, and so on and so forth. So if those who are pushing, insecurity in the Southeast are doing that in order to achieve Gaza, I think they need to have a rethink. We need to go back to the drawing board. They need to know that they are not alone in this. I am also aware of what we call the deep state. The deep state here means that in a situation like that, the state can and create more confusion, even do some of the killings, and then let the usual suspects be the ones that we take to blame. That's what we call the deep state. Yes, it happens. So I am not ruling that out. But no matter how we look at it, whether we like it or not, our people formed the Eastern Security Network. Yes, and armed them. They've been training and they wear uniform, they've been trained, they've been moving around and stuff. So, even if you say that they are not the ones perpetrating this, you cannot run away from what you call vicarious liability, vicarious responsibility, because you formed ESN. That is the truth. It's a historical fact that it was formed. And there is no record anywhere that it has been disbanded. Because if you don't want them to take responsibility of anything that has to do with security in the Southeast, then you officially disband them and say they no longer exist. So as long as they are there in the frame, we need to know what exactly is their job. What are they doing?
No.
They say they want to be responsible for security in the Southeast. But there is so much insecurity. Insecurity is escalating. So would they say that they have achieved their aim of ensuring security of lives and property in the Southeast? They haven't.
Okay, now, how far, in terms of the insecurity in the Southeast, do you think, by your own estimation, that is going to drive down the economy to the point that even the Igbo diaspora will, at some point, might begin to, fret for their life, that they will not be visiting home? And story has it that also that many people, when they now come, their family tells them not to come to the village. They should stay in the cities. And even in the cities, no one is that safe. How deep is the mess we are in?
I think what is confronting us now as a sub-nationality, perhaps the most populous in Nigeria, indigenous population in Nigeria, may be much more serious than many of us would imagine. The issue is very clear. It's what you call a clear and present danger. Those who think that there is a danger does not exist, to no one to face reality. And that is why I say that we need to get down to the drawing board to find out exactly what is fueling, what we are passing as insecurity. What is providing the oxygen? Something is certainly providing the oxygen. There is a primary reason why this is moving, and it has to be confronted head on. And of course, it is only basic that only the tree would hear that it will be killed and still stand where it is standing. Only a tree. Even the man that the pigeon that was killed yesterday or today, and his head, hung somewhere, displayed all over the social media. is a returnee from the US who returned, took up the mantle of leadership of his time as President General and got killed in this gruesome manner. What do you think will be the response of his friends in the US? It's a very simple something. And then what is the motive? What's his problem? You know, is the man known to be involved in things untoward that will require this kind of killing and the open display of hate? I think that the rot is deep, far deeper than we can all imagine. We need to look at the issues dispassionately and identify those who are involved and really begin to talk. We just have to start to talk. You know, we need to get to understand what is going on and know how to even reach should I say a truce? Yes, reach a truce. 3 months, 6 months, to even allow the incoming government to come in and see what they can do. That is the truth. He has to take the lead in restoring, security, not just in Anambra, but in the South.
But even
I'm Professor Soludo, and it has to be done. It is inescapable.
But
it
even
is irreducible minimum requirement before his administration will be able to register and score high enough as he anticipates.
But many are even argue that the insecurity, especially in Anambra, will be much higher in the coming days. The argument is anchored on the fact that if the governor comes in terms of revenue collection and decides to do away with what has been the norm of people feeding fat from the revenues accruing to the state, that those whom he is basically taking their feeding bottles away will probably join the fray of, ensuring that there is more insecurity. Does that have any basis to reality?
Yes, that assumption resonates with me. I say so because if you check the level of insecurity around the governorship election, it actually spiked. It got to all-time high. Why was it so? It was politically motivated. That's the truth. So I will not be surprised if those feeding fans of the revenues of Anambra would want to sponsor more insecurity in Anambra State. Well, I would only see that as collateral damage. If that becomes the case, as it is not unlikely, I think the incoming governor will most of them says that because he has been talking about obstacles that he would encounter, but he is not deterred. His determination to restore order and decency in Anambra State. You see, Anambra has been a kind of funnel, a funnel for filtering of government revenue. Let me give you an example. Anambra has at least 60 viable markets. 60 viable markets. And yet, it records far lower
than Ebonyi and Enugu.
So what is that? It's very obvious. It's very obvious. Nnewi and Onitsha, the two of them are enough to give Anambra State the mileage in terms of IGR. But you don't get that. What happens to the money? The money has ended up somewhere else. And the method employed by the outgoing Obiam non-government. They outsourced revenue generation to many of them are political gladiators. Such revenue collections are used to service some political interests in the state. And Soludo says he wants Anambra State money to work for Anambra State people. So it has to be done. It's a big challenge. It's a fight he has to win if he has to really anchor his government and make progress I am with him on that because it's the only way to go. We need to recover a minimum of 80 to 90% of Anambra IGR. You can't recover 100%, but I know that if the political will is there, enforcement is there, and the other adjunct processes, you'll be able to hit 80 to 90% revenue generation and recovery. And if this is done, enough money will be on ground so that whatever you get in terms of support, financial support from the International Monetary System and diaspora, and you add to what you have, and then of course the federal allocation, you will have the basic money you need to really rev the state. Anambra needs to budget minimum of 200 and 250 billion naira every year. What we budget at the moment is less than 100. Is about 100 for this year. For this year, it's about 159. But when you remove the amount that will go into debt servicing, what you have as the balance to run this thing is less than 100 billion. Yeah. If it is less than 100 billion, don't forget that over 60% of the 100 billion will go to recurrent, mainly salary and so on and so forth. So how much do you really have left to tackle development?
But exactly,
I mean, all these things must be addressed.
In this point you raised, in our conversation last week with Dr. Obi Ezekwesili here, she alluded to the fact that Anambra State is a $10 billion economy, yet the tax to GDP ratio is 0.05. So basically 0.0 is not even up to 0.5, or is not even up to 1% of people paying tax. So it's a Herculean task because everybody expects the government to do magic. Oh, this road is not working. Oh, there is no water. Yet no one is paying tax. How are you going to deal with it? Even the little that is paid goes to the fat, to the fat bags.
You see, Anambra people and Nigerians indeed don't mind paying tax if they see what the money is used for. That is a simple truth. Even they trust Soludo, which I believe they will, and they have demonstrated that they trust him by giving him an overwhelming mandate. Out of 21 local governments, they won outright in 19. And the other two, he came very close second. In the other two, he didn't outright win. It's a very serious demonstration of faith and confidence in him. And that is what he has to leverage. He has to clearly outline what has to be done. And, like the work of the transition committee, the massive blueprint will have to be summarized in deliverables and takeaways in the way and manner that Anambra State people can understand it. And you disseminate the information. You get people to understand that, look, this is where we are, but this is where we should be. And to get to this place that we want to all be, this is the role that should be played by government. This is the role that will be played by the citizens of Anambra State. Once you get to that level of understanding and cooperation between the government and the people of Anambra State, paying tax will be a happy thing. I'm telling you the gospel truth. Remember during the election, there was a woman that refused to take 5,000 naira.
That's correct.
She refused, obviously poor, but she didn't want to take the 5,000. He said that we want to do
Dr. Mefor.
Perhaps you have millions of them around Anambra State. So all Soludo needs to do is to ensure that it pushes the issue of trust. Let the people know that they can trust him. And he says that, look, this is what is coming to your town. This is what is coming to your local government. This is what is coming to what is coming to the state. Between this time and this time, and people can see that within 100 days, they say that this will be done, and it. He said that in 200 days, this will be done, and 200 days, comes, and he surpasses it. People will be happy to pay tax because they can see clearly where the money is going to. There is what we call inclusive growth. What is going on in Anambra State has been palliative governance and non-inclusive growth. And that is why you don't have serious development. You see, inclusive growth is a kind of growth that will engender happiness and prosperity for everybody, big and small, rich and poor, educated, uneducated, skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled. There is something in there for everybody, something in there for everybody. And once you design an economy like that, which is what Soludo's manifesto is all about, which is what the work of the Transition Committee is all about, to ensure inclusive growth, to ensure measurable growth that people can connect to and be part of. People will pay tax. And you need to pay this tax in such a way as to make them feel that they are funding their own government. And all woman can pay tax and put the photocopy on the kiosk, so that the enforcers will see, she will be the one saying, look, see my receipt, I have paid. Do you understand that? And that is, you see, for you to really get governance going, you must get a buy-in of the people. What has happened is because our people have not bought into the vision of government, because government all along is not really designed to carry the masses along. The difference between what has happened in Anambra before, what has happened in Nigeria before, and what Soludo wants to bring in is that there is now inclusivity in the designs in hands. There is inclusivity in the sense that the towns will have to be involved, the segments, women, widows, everybody, youth, educated, non-educated, there is a job for everybody. So whoever wants to be part of Soludo's government, there is a role for you. There is something you can do. And empowerment will be designed in such a
Okay, Dr. Mefor, that is it. Hello. I think you're
moving people. No, I'm back now.
Okay.
You need to.
Can we round up?
You need to get. Yes. Okay. The point I'm trying to make is this: that governance, once it is inclusive, will bring in the buy-in of the people. And once you have the buy-in of the people, paying tax, as long as it is transparently done, and accountability is inherent in the system, people will be glad to be part and parcel of the process. That is what Soludo will do differently. And I think the state and indeed the service will be the better for it.
That is a very fine place to anchor our conversation this evening. Thank you very much, Dr. Mefor, a forensic social. Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for being part of this program. Thank you. Now, for many of you who do not know, as I said in the beginning, Dr. Mefor is a forensic social psychologist, a teacher, a journalist, a public policy analyst, a media and communication strategist, author, social critic, inspirational speaker, and public intellectual. On that note, that is much we can take today. Please join me tomorrow, 6 p.m. Nigerian time. I will be having a one-on-one with Omoyele Sowore. We will be talking a lot of, or rather we will touch on a lot of issues. His incarceration, the reason why he's been in Abuja for the last couple of years, how his case is progressing. Suddenly he says he wants to become the president of Nigeria. If you have any question that you may want me to ask him, you may send that question to me using my either Twitter handle at Mazi Ezoke, or you may use njenjemedia@gmail.com to send that question across. Again, I am happy to have you all here today. The conversation before now had always or had been on the state of the Igbo nation, Anambra State transiting to a new era. I am still Mazi Ezeoke, and I say to you, happy Friday and bye for now.